Postcolonial theory is super inaccessible, and I hate that. You should not have to be in a big college class like I am in order to have discussions about it. So I'm going to be taking the discussions and the readings from that class and putting them in a hopefully digestible format here on TikTok over the next few days. So if you see one of these videos of me breaking down postcolonial theory terms on your For You page, please comment. I would love to talk to you about it. We can definitively decide that colonialism is evil. We first have to actually define it. It's essentially an exploitative relationship between colonizer and colonized, in which colonizer subjugates the colonized in a variety of different ways depending on the circumstance. Also circumstantial are the reasonings that the colonizer countries have for their colonialism, which range from a bunch of different stupid and ridiculous ideas. A very common justification is that the colonized country is uneducated and uncivilized. Aimé Césaire argues that the colonizer countries, through using these justifications and through reiterating these justifications and using them to justify their violence, that they then deteriorate their own humanity. He was cooking with that one, I'm not gonna. If you look at the actual cultures, traditions, and knowledge systems of colonized countries, you can easily see that the justification of uncivilized and uneducated falls apart immediately. For example, here in Western North Carolina and a lot of the other U.S. states, we viewed the land as untapped resource because we saw it as wilderness, when in all reality, all of these were intentionally managed landscapes by different indigenous groups. The main thing here going by the new names of agroforestry and silviculture. Civilization isn't defined as big city and guy with gun. Hot take. Colonialism is done through multiple different means, and all of these means can be used or none of them can be used. You got resource extraction, you have cultural genocide, you have physical genocide. So I think colonialism is evil, period. The ultimate expression of sovereignty resides in the power and the capacity to dictate who may live and who must die. This is a quote from Akile Mbembe's essay Necropolitics, which has to be one of my favorite essays that I've ever read for a class ever. It's an extremely heavy one, but it goes in depth about the manifestation of power that allows a country to decide who lives and who dies, and it expands on the concept of biopower originally introduced by Foucault. And I know that that was a pretentious and very theory-heavy statement, but we're talking about the mechanisms that governments use to decide who they kill and who they spare. Race is one of the most prevalent of these mechanisms, and if we focus in on our own lives, we can easily see how that is playing. If we look at the US, we have a long history of using race as a mechanism to excuse our violent and horrific behavior. If we look at right now in the US, what is the excuse for our current deportations? Mexicans are dangerous and scary. We're using race and ethnicity as an excuse for our horrendous and violent behavior. We don't only need to think about the government's excuses for doing these things, but we also need to think about who is able to get away with these things. For example, civilians have been getting away with lynching black students on college campuses for a while now, but the second someone shoots Charlie Kirk during a debate, the media goes fucking crazy. And that may seem like comparing apples to oranges, but it's really not. That is just necropolitics in action. Governments don't only choose who lives and who dies blatantly, but they also choose who gets to have safe and healthy living conditions. And this mechanism is called slow violence. An example of this is it's not safe or healthy to live right next to a literal garbage dump, but garbage dumps are typically put right next to a poorer community, because why would you put a garbage dump next to a rich community? That's fucking ridiculous. Slow violence. Expanding out globally, what are the countries with the worst working conditions? Ones that are deeply affected by colonialism and imperialism. The phones that we're using to communicate with each other right now are kind of products of slow violence if you think about it for more than 2 seconds. There is no true freedom for anybody if certain world powers get to decide which one of us gets the right to a safe and healthy life. I just read the craziest thing from my post-colonial theory class, and I need to talk about it because it's actually unhinged. And I'm talking about The Dreaded Comparison by Marjorie Spiegel. Those of you who've read this know exactly what I'm going to talk about. The thesis of this essay is basically that it's okay to compare people to animals when talking about systems of oppression. Now, if you got the ick, stay with me because she actually says nothing of substance to make this actually make sense. One of the arguments she leans on is indigenous people's reverence for animals, which of course is spoken about in a way that homogenizes not only all of the indigenous people of the Americas, but all of the indigenous people globally. She also says that the racial line driven between white and black people is a very similar line driven between humans and animals, which could be interesting, but she doesn't go anywhere with it. And I know it's probably a terrible idea to ask on social media what people's thoughts are on this, but what are y'all's thoughts on this?